our first panel discussion, Navigating the Future, AI, Innovation, and Inclusive Growth in a Digitally Driven Economy. In a time where technology is reshaping every sector, this panel will explore how we can ensure that progress remains innovative and inclusive, not just transformative, but equitable as well. To guide us through this exchange, we are proud to welcome the moderator for this session, a leader who embodies digital vision and transformation. Please welcome Mr. Vimal Gangadin, CEO of Mauritius Telecom. And joining him on stage for this exceptional panel, Honorable Avinash Ramtuol, sous vos applaudissements. I'll invite Honorable Daneshwar Damri to join us. Mr. John Sane, Mr. Hazen Nizam, and Mr. Clive Smith.
So thank you for being here. As you can see here, we have a panel. It's a pretty good panel here, isn't it? You've got the public sector, 2 ministers. You've got the private sector, all outside of Mauritius right now, right? So we are looking at going a little bit hard. Can we do that? Can we do that? So at the same time, you'll be able to participate in the whole panel discussion. Later, you'll see there's a QR code that will flash on the screen. You'd be able to scan that. And then once you scan it, you'll be able to ask some questions. So once you ask questions, it's a tool called Slido that we're using. And then we'll get your questions. I'll get your questions. And then we'll be able to take those questions. So as and when we're talking, if there's some ideas popping up on your side, and then feel free to ask the questions. Okay, so I think our panelists need no introduction. Some of them you already know. We'll do some further introduction in a short time, and I'll give the panelists some time to do that. But maybe I'll start with a question to our Minister of ITCI. So you've recently published the National Blueprint. So when I look at it, there have been lots of plans in the past, lots of blueprints done in the past, but then great plans, but then they don't get achieved. So we have high hopes, but what's going to be different this time? Why will it happen, like whatever is in the blueprint?
Yep, thank you for this question, Vimal. It's a question that we received at different instances as to what is it that we're doing differently for there to be success. Now, first of all, we have not done that on our own. It's a plan that was prepared by us, by you, by a lot of people who are also not here today. So there was the private sector, there were the operators, there were the regulators, there was the public at large. One of the principles that we used to prepare the blueprint was partnership. So it's not just the public-private partnership, it's the public-private-people partnership. And how we did the people aspect, we actually opened the government chatbot called Maya, so that it could receive input from the population at large. And we got a lot, especially from the youth. Secondly, we had a series of workshops. We did around 12 workshops for us to be able to collect what was the view, the vision, and the expectations of the operators and different companies around IT digitalization for Mauritius for the next few years. So these two things already were different. Then we relooked at the basics, the fundamentals, as to whether we had what we needed to have in order to leap forward. So we didn't have a Gov stack. We didn't have basic fundamental, and I said it's a cardinal mistake not to have it. The disaster recovery site to plan for redundancy. We didn't have that either. We also relooked at the institutional framework, which is very old. The one that we have currently for the government IT sector is very old. So we are relooking at that and combining it with also what we require for the future. So while we plan ahead for 5 years, this blueprint is setting the roadmap for the next even 10 years. So these are some things that were different. And we are also integrating a review of the legal framework, which has been there for some time, but again, it needs to be reviewed. And we had an eye on the African continent while devising or formulating the blueprint. We have for far too long neglected the African continent. And you'll realize, Vimal, that the first trip that our Prime Minister did was for the African Union Summit in Ethiopia, that was in Africa. And that sent a very good message that we know that Africa is the land for investment. Many companies in Mauritius are there present already. Many professionals of Mauritius are operating there, and we want to grow the bridge with Africa. So the blueprint caters for that as well.
All right, thanks. Clive, maybe I'll jump to you to complement that a little bit. Maybe you can start with a quick introduction. And then what we're trying to do here is to move things to transform legacy organizations, legacy systems. So what's your advice and how do you see that?
Yeah, thank you, Vimal. So quick introduction, Clive Smith. I'm a client partner, senior client partner with a company called Corn Ferry. We work with organizations to transform their people and their organization elements. We do that full life cycle. Everything that has to do with people that come into our organizations while they're working in the organizations and as they move out of organizations. We're a global organization. We operate in multiple locations around the globe. A big portion of our business is selection, search, and recruitment, but the consultancy side is there to augment that once we've got CEOs and heads of function in position. We work a lot with boards, and invariably when we work with boards, we also work with government representatives on boards. When it comes to transforming organizations, we've learned through our experiences that a lot of organizations to transform would start to look at the structures and the systems. So they look at the hardwire of the organization, and then they come to the softwire afterwards, and they try and change people to fit into the hardwire, and that fails every time. I can give you an example. I worked with BT in the mid-2000s when BT was getting into broadband, and they created a separate division called BT Broadband and Innovate. And they forgot to focus on what the other divisions in the organization needed to do in the transformation. So in BT Operate and BT Broadband and Innovate, they brought a bunch of young digital natives in from outside who were completely different from the rest of the organization, who had a legacy of being in the General Post Office. So BT was grown out of the General Post Office until they basically divested from the government and became a separate organization. The big challenge that they faced was the hardwiring and the softwiring from BT Operate didn't land with the organization, with the global business, with the wholesale business and the resale business. And in those days, OpenReach, which was their network business, was also part of the organization. And it was only after a period that they realized they needed to focus on the softwire, what John called about the awareness first, that they could start to shift the mindset and the skill set of the organization. Now, an interesting thing around shifting legacy organizations is that if you look at trying to transform people that have not grown up with a technology like digital natives, then there's a period that comes before the sadness, which we didn't talk about, which is shock. So that realization that I need to be different is something that is like putting people in like a rabbit in the headlights. And you have to get people through that stage of shock by getting them to appreciate what the past is. And so you celebrate the past, but you get them to appreciate what's brought them to this point won't take them to the future. But it's that celebration that starts them to get through the sadness process and starts them to get to engaging what the future was like. Now, the way you do that is not through the rational think or act, but it's through the feel. As people, we feel first before we think and act. So when something happens to us, we actually take it into our subconscious and we store it about the feeling that we have. So when that same situation arises, then we feel first, and then we think, and then we act. And so if you've had a bad experience of a previous transformation, the minute they say, we're going to transform your business, then the emotion comes up, and that's what starts to block you. So to transform people out of a legacy organization, you need to work with that emotion. You need to work with the feel side first. And you do that by actually getting involved through immersive processes of what the future might look like for them and how it can benefit them. And then you've got your way to get going forward.
Fantastic. And in a way, that's pretty much what you've been doing this morning, because I asked you that very first question because that's the comment that I've been getting. Oh, there have been previous plans, so this plan will not work as well, right? So painting, dealing head-on with the emotion, like what you're saying, and then painting a future story of where we can. Maybe that's how communications needs to be done as well at the country level. Is that how you see it, Clive? Yeah.
Absolutely. I was very fortunate to work with an agribusiness. Now, agribusiness is a very dirty business because it's all about agri-chemicals and genetically modified products, etc. The company I worked with is Syngenta, who is a product of a merger between the agribusinesses of Novartis and AstraZeneca. And when they merged, they realized they had to create a new business, a business which was all about the future. And so we started to work with an external company at that stage, which was all about getting the leaders in a different state of mind and to get them to feel what the future was going to be like. And the first process was something called a purpose quest, because the company had to create a completely new purpose. And so the leadership team, which was used to 5-star hotels, traveling first class, being on luxury cruises, was taken to Crete and put in the back and beyond to live in straw huts, or should I say mud huts, on mud floors for a weekend, and using techniques such as meditation and mindfulness and being sat alone to reflect on what the past was, but also what the future could be. They managed to come up with a purpose statement, which is still their purpose statement today, and has been the actual raison d'etre for their success over the last 10, 15 years. And that purpose statement is bringing plant potential to life. And the focus there is how they get the qualities of plants to help in healthcare and in terms of advancing agriculture to feed the masses of the future, plants that could be grown under very low water conditions, etc. So the science started coming into that. But what they did was to do the soft wiring first, and then the hard wiring came after that.
Cool. So look, let's move to something a little bit more practical. I'll turn to Junior Finance Minister. So there was the recent budget, right? This morning we talked a lot about AI. And one of the things that was mentioned in the budget is the 200 million rupees being earmarked to be spent on AI. But then again, that's only for the public sector, I realize. What about for the private sector? Was the private sector forgotten?
Vimal, thank you for the question. You know, the budget has been polarizing attention a lot, but I'll try to reply to your question. But first, I'd like to put some context. to AI and the economy. A bit more like the macroeconomics of AI. So if you, I'll cite 3 reports. Firstly, IMF, which suggested that AI would impact approximately 40% of jobs. Secondly, I'll cite the latest Goldman Sachs report, which suggests that the impact of AI would be anything up to the tune of 7% of GDP, global GDP. 7 percent, that is approximately 17 trillion USD. McKinsey is even more optimistic. They are saying it's 17 to 26 trillion USD. And then you have the last year's economics Nobel Prize winner, who is MIT Sloan professor Darren Acemoglu. And it was actually on a paper named The Macroeconomics of AI that he got the Nobel Prize. And he suggested that the impact would be a bit more conservative, approximately 1% of GDP and not 7% of GDP. The reason I told you all this story is because in Mauritius also we are quite pragmatic and realistic in our own view. We like to model a lot on Singapore. You're from Singapore. So Singapore suggests that today the contribution of the digital economy, which AI forms part, is about 18%. But it forecasts that just AI will contribute that 18% to its GDP by 2030. And if you look at this year's budget, it's called Innovative Mauritius, where digital AI has a prominent place. And the reason it has that prominent place is we are very much conscious of the change that is coming. So we have to face the change, adapt, manage, embrace the change. Otherwise, change will consume us. And that is why, as a start, the government has made provision for about 200 million rupees for investments in public sector AI. However, we, at the same time, given our sovereign debt, you will realize that the majority of the investments has to come from the private sector. And the government has created and is creating incentives like the Innovative Mauritius scheme for private sector to invest into AI. And at the same time, the government is in the process of setting up the Future Fund. And government will allocate approximately 3 billion rupees to the Future Fund. And one of the priority transformative investment sectors that the government has listed there is AI. So government will be a facilitator, a force multiplier, and I would like to take this opportunity to make a call for action to the private sector. The government relies on the private sector to make major investments in AI, and not only in public services, that's one aspect. Just like about 30 years ago, Mauritius started the financial services sector. And look, today that sector contributes 14% to our GDP, 12,000 people in employment, and a significant contributor in our primary surplus. Similarly, Mauritius needs to find its position in the supply chain, the value chain of AI to the continent, to the region. And Mauritius, that is what we need to do. And I won't say I have a dream, but I have a vision. Just like we have the financial services sector, I would hope that one of the legacy of this government is to have a thriving AI sector, equaling and or competing in terms of positive contribution to the economy as the financial services sector. And I'd like to just have a, and another call to action I'd like to make is that change is here, so we have to embrace it. And I think Albert Einstein said that you cannot solve today's problems with the same mindset that helped create those problems in the first place. So the government is very much along that lines. We are adapting to change, facing change, embracing change, and we are going to be a force multiplier to the AI industry, and you're doing a very commendable initiative at Mauritius Telecom.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. So you hear that. So there's the Future Fund coming up, right? So we're waiting for that. So by the way, if we can have the QR code up, please, so you can start scanning the QR code to ask your questions. So if we can put that up. So speaking around the same topic as well, so we have Nizam here. So if you don't know Nizam, and then you can do a further intro about yourself. So there's a company called Zoho. How many of you know Zoho? How many know that Zoho has 120 or 30 million customers online? Right? So it's a really big company. So Nizam here is the CEO for EMEA. Lots of track record, been with the company, if I'm not wrong, for 28 years, employee number 18. So he's seen it all within the company. So he's currently based in Dubai. And then we were chatting, and he was telling me, but we need to look at the basics. So Zoho, for those of you who don't know, like, is an ecosystem of apps for SMEs. And then he was telling me about the story of India and then invoicing. So maybe Nizam, maybe you can share a little bit about that, and then what do you think is a gap in Mauritius, and what do you think we should be doing?
Sure. First, let me thank Vimal putting together this great show. And I've been to a lot of events, a lot of countries, and it's very unusual to see people from all walks of life, decision makers, ministers who talk about AI in depth, right? And I'm glad that the Mauritius got great leaders out here. With that note, yeah, definitely, I look forward to collaborate more closely with the Mauritian government, with the Mauritian business. I'm glad to see a lot of people already using Zoho. So yesterday during dinner, me and Vimal were talking about the different strategies of, how we could really help each other. And one of the talking point was like how India navigated the whole the GST wave and how it helped us in terms of the businesses getting more focus on their business than really getting into the paperwork and whatnot, right? And that's when really it struck a chord how we can really take a leaf out of it. I'm glad that the government is already doing, but the new ministers here are even more ambitious. So the e-invoicing is a really successful one in India. It's been taken a leaf out and been implemented in other countries. Like Kenya had the TIMS, which is again e-invoicing. I think what India has done is like they has really lowered the tax slab in terms of people can do e-invoicing so that the government can have a complete visibility of what's happening in the businesses and can help the businesses. Right, in terms of how they can lend a loan or collaborate with the banking system, and how they can really work with the banking system and help those businesses. All that you need to have a data. You need to really measure those data. What you measure is how we can really basically like improve things, right? So I think there's a great starting point here. E-invoicing being put out in practice here. That's what I heard in Mauritius. But the ceiling was really high. I asked the numbers, they said like 100 million or something, right? I'm sure like the minister is going to really work on that on top of it, and definitely, and also your accounting software is really have to be, e-invoicing ready. And the accounting software has to really be connected to the banking system. Your MCB bank has to really, if you're a business, you do e-invoicing, you apply it, then you go to your banking system, it is reconciled, ready for you to really file the tax. Right, so all this, your mundane task and your, a lot of times, right, businesses have been spending 20%, 30% of time on these paperworks. And that's exactly what this new government is trying to really, in terms of bridge that gap, in terms of how we can accelerate that e-invoicing, how vendors like Zoho can be part of the system in terms of providing the accounting software for the businesses, and then be partnered with the banking system, and then all this ecosystem can come together, provide a great customer experience, and where it can let the customers, let the businesses focus on their business, and all the paperwork are being really taken care by these vendors out here, okay? And also it's good for the environment, right? You know how many, before the GST, how many businesses been printing papers, you know, writing and whatnot, right? It's a very, you know, as part of the ESG, this is a great initiative, and I think already the government is on top of it, and I'm sure like they'll be accelerating these efforts, and I would be glad that Zoho can be part of it. Thank you.
So we'll obviously take the minister's views on that. So just for the context, so in Mauritius, if you are a business that, if you do above 100 million rupees, no, sorry, yes, in Mauritius, above 100 million rupees, then you have to do e-invoicing, then the data go to MRA, taxes are done in a very seamless way. If you do less than 100 million rupees, then you don't have this requirement. In India, a much bigger country, that ceiling is 5 million rupees. So if you do anything below 5 million rupees, okay, you do invoicing the way you want. But if you're above 5 million rupees, everything has to be digitalized. So are we missing out here? What do you think?
I think you're preaching to the converted here. And this is my personal opinion. See, this government, we have 4 values when it comes to public finances: fiscal responsibility, transparency, accountability, and discipline. Now, to be able to, these are the 4 values that guide us. And that's the first principle. The second principle is we want to digitalize the entire economy, and colleague Avinash is doing a fantastic job there. And the third principle is we want to make life easier. We want to make things simple, and lowering the invoicing ceiling would make that happen. And I'll take it on board, and we'll work on that. And hopefully we can come up with solutions faster than expected.
Cool, thank you. Anything you want to add, Minister?
I was just thinking that, yes, this would be a great measure. However, when we come back to just pure IT business, the way things were being done, and I think Minister Lamri mentioned that as well, the mindset. Okay, and I'd just like to bounce off that. The mindset in the past has been different. You know, the success or the failure of a software is not decided by the quality of the software, but decided by how the end user perceives the software. So the quality is defined by them. We all know that quality is, it should meet the implicit and explicit expectations of users. And this is why I mentioned people, because they will be the ultimate users. They may be government employees, but they are people. Therefore, in the past, the way those papers were designed, the strategy papers, where they were inside out, from within the ministry, let's do this, 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 and then they take it to the market, to the people. We did it outside in. We want the people to tell us what they want. And while coming in, we also reviewed the way we are ourselves organized. Hence, we mentioned the institutional framework and the legal framework as well. And I'd just like to share that with the audience here. We probably think that, you know, in the public sector, things are different when it comes to the motivation of people. While preparing the blueprint, and I said it in the past in public, that this blueprint was prepared by the ministry itself. In as much as there was a budget planned for this, we kept the budget aside, we saved government money, taxpayers' money, and we did it ourselves. My friend from PwC, I met him earlier, he wasn't happy about it. But we wanted to do it ourselves because it was for us. For implementation, we'll call out to the implementers, right? Of course, the plan, we drafted ourselves. So, and the ministry did not have a vision statement when we joined. So there was no sort of common point at which everybody was looking. So if you show them the moon, they will look at your finger. You know, if you point at the moon, they'll look at the finger. We want them to look at the moon. So we aligned the team at the ministry. And we want, there's no two way about it to say it. We need more people to come to join the team. So we will soon recruit people from the private sector as well to come in to strengthen the team at the ministry so we can do the implementation the way we need to do. Out of the blueprint, we defined around 84 projects. And each of those projects is important. Some of high importance, others of medium. So we have already started dissecting the blueprint, breaking them down into different projects. And we have also established an interministerial committee, which wasn't there in the past with the previous regime. We've established that under the leadership of one of our leaders. We'll mention that later when the right time comes. But we have that interministerial committee already to look into or to monitor the implementation. So we have a governance framework already defined with key KPIs. KPIs, the key performance indicators, the real metrics, because we cannot manage what we don't measure. We need to measure.
Fantastic, and great to hear this. You know, like I was just chatting after your session this morning. Some of them were telling me, ministers don't speak like this, right? They just go to the podium and then do something, not do a keynote like what you did, so good on you. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, I knew that would come. I remember once I was sitting with Safaricom in Kenya and discussing about M-Pesa and what was the new innovation that could be brought, right? And there was another time when I was sitting with Fidelity Bank in Nigeria to discuss their innovation. At other times, I was seated with SITA in South Africa to define what the government is doing in terms of digital services. So all that put together brings in those elements.
Fantastic. John, you gave a great keynote this morning, right? So thank you for that, right? So I think we can agree that it's been really good and it's inspiring. I have a question for you. Give us a brutal reality check in Mauritius. What do we need to hear?
I was in America recently, and I went to a park after my talk. And in the park, it was a Sunday afternoon, and they were setting up an orchestra, a community orchestra, and people started arriving, all in their late 40s, all the way up to 70 years old, and they all started packing picnics all around this park to watch this orchestra. And before the orchestra started playing, the conductor said that they're going to play the American national anthem. And every single person in that park stood up and sang the national anthem. I thought it was a joke, because who on a Sunday stands up and sings a national anthem of their country? I come from South Africa, and there's hardly any pride about living in South Africa. Everybody's angry with what's happened in South Africa. And I was so enthralled by the pride they had about their country that I thought, this is exactly why America is America. It's just they have this incredible self-belief. And I don't know enough about Mauritius to be able to say that you have that or don't have that. But what I can say is I have experienced South Africa that doesn't have that. And you can see the disorganization in South Africa. It is just all over the place. Everybody's infighting. And I now live in Dubai, and the residents of Dubai are all very proud of living in Dubai, because they've left countries that most probably haven't been working, like Lebanon or South Africa, and they moved to Dubai, and then there's this new sense of pride. I think if there's anything that I think you could do more of, is how do you instill more pride about being Mauritian and what it actually means in the future of what Mauritius could stand for. And I think that could be done in a couple different ways. The first way is, and again, I don't know what you're doing, is what is the education of AI happening from schools upwards? Because we all know that Singapore has now mandated it. Dubai has now started to mandate it to bring compulsory AI education into the bottom up. And then how are you incentivizing your citizens to be educating themselves in AI so that their language and understanding of the potential of AI can give them more confidence and in turn more pride? So I think and I remember FNB in South Africa ran this internal innovation competition. And it was in the mid-2000s where they would give you 1 million rand if you came up with an innovation that helped the bank move forward. And what happened is the whole bank intenlity's culture started to change to become very focused on innovation. And we know that Michael Jordan was voted the most innovative CEO in the world back then. Forget about banks, in the world. And so I think there's certain levers that you could be. And again, I don't know what you're doing currently. But the levers are, how do you create more pride in the potential of what we can do? How do you simplify AI to the adults? How do you infuse more inspiration to the students? And in turn, create a competitive landscape that gets your citizens to think on your behalf and to crowdsource that wisdom to move forward.
Oh, fantastic, John. I love it. In fact, after spending years in Singapore, that we know is a very successful place, I can tell you, like they're super proud of the country.
They're overtly proud. The Singaporeans are even too proud, really. Yeah.
When you go out, people say something bad about the country, they're defending that fiercely. And I come back here and we're bashing each other. Nothing is good. Even if it's good, it's not good.
I've been spending time with some Mauritians, and there's been a lot of, oh, it's not good enough, and then the government did this, and then that. There wasn't much pride. So I think, how do you change the cultural tonality? And in South Africa, we've started something called the Lacquer Network. And it's this network of South Africans living around the world to create a little bit of energy between the South Africans living around the world, because most South Africans living around the world are bashing South Africa, which is a terrible energy to have in any way, you know?
Yeah.
So what are the levers that you could be pulling? What are the marketing plays that you could play into the culture that slowly but surely feed it in? Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know what
I'll beg to differ with you here because, you know, we are a very proud nation. I'm not saying it because I'm Mauritian, but yes, we are a democratic country. We say things to each other. That's fair. But whenever the country has called upon its children, all the children, irrespective of religion, economic status, all the children have been present. What I think is, so I don't think it's that much a question of pride, but I think it's more a question of change and perhaps opportunity. If I can make myself a bit, I'll try to explain myself. So with Mauritius Telecom, I think in 2016 or 2017, I was part of it. I brought the MIT, I think, Global Lab, Startup Lab, the Global Startup Lab, and Mauritius Telecom was part of it at the time. And it's a project that, it's a startup lab that was present in, I think, 11 or 13 countries. And we had Mauritius as the 12th or 13th country, I don't remember anymore. And there were 55 projects that came in. But it, you know, for an MIT startup lab kind of standards, they did not even qualify those projects as MVPs, minimum viable product. They qualified them as ideas. They were still at the ideation stage. And that is why the MIT Startup Lab did not come back to Mauritius. So I think, I'll be honest, when there are some challenges, I'll agree. I think we do not create enough space, enough opportunities for startups to kind of thrive in this country. And I think that's one of the things that this government is going to make good. You look at Singapore. Singapore has its economic diplomacy. I don't remember if it's called Station 8 or Block 71, for instance, in
Block 71, yeah.
Block 71 in Silicon Valley. Singapore has enough angel investors, seed investors, and Singapore encourages a forward failure culture. So that's the other thing, culture, not pride, culture. Because, you know, if you fail in Mauritius once, it's not too good for you. You don't get the opportunity to fail a second time, or a third time, or a fourth time, or a fifth time, till you actually succeed. Whereas in Singapore, you can fail 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, and you get the opportunity to succeed. So I'm sorry, because, you know, it's about national pride. So we are a proud nation, but we lack opportunities. Maybe there needs to be a culture change. So I just wanted to say that.
Cool.
Yeah, and if you allow me to add, we saw that pride on the 9th and 10th of November last year. Yes, but I'm saying it. Everybody knows it. Because the moment we saw that there was danger ahead, irrespective of creed, caste, color, the people got together. We say we are standing up to defend our country. And this was the love for our country which I saw, I experienced firsthand. And I really think that people in Mauritius love their country and they want to do something good for the country. And the diaspora is also very well aligned with us.
Look, I'm not saying you're not. I did start off with, I don't know what you're doing. So let me start there. I think what it is that not that you're not proud, how can you be prouder? And how much more could you do to educate the society into becoming more friendly with the technological world? And what usually happens is when the technological world becomes more and more complex, people become more and more scared of it. And so how do you bring that more into the conversations, both from the kids from school, so that the dinner conversations start to change inside the home, where both the parents and the kids are having the same type of conversation about the future?
Yep. So there is this concept of equal opportunities and equity in opportunities, or equitable opportunities. And I think we need to shift towards equitable opportunities, and that will enhance this feeling, my thought.
Okay, cool. I love it. So look, what we're going to do now is we're going to jump to the questions that you've been sending. So thank you very much for your questions. By the way, you can vote on the questions. So the way I'm going to go is I'm going to start from the top and then down. So if there's any questions that you like, so feel free to vote on that. So the very first one itself is, I'll take that in concrete terms. How will policymakers make AI awareness available for one and all, as it still remains kind of a mystery for a large portion of Mauritius? Avinash?
I'm still looking for the question. Is the first one on top?
No, it's moved to the second one. So basically the question is, how will policymakers make AI awareness available to everyone?
Okay, so
skills development.
Yeah, the skills. First of all, the Ministry of Education has decided to have AI education mandatory for upper primary and forward. So this is one. Secondly, we are also working with students. Our students, that's Generation Z and Alpha. They don't need any training really to use the most common apps. And the way we are redesigning our apps, they'll be very intuitive with the human cognitive process. So they will not have difficulties. And we want to leverage their day of social service to go to the social welfare centers to educate our elderly people and all those who want to come in. There will be the establishment of the AI unit, which will also have education and training as part of their mandate, over and above developing the AI policy usage and framework, and also the development framework, AI development framework. This way we will ensure that everything that is being developed is within the bounds of law.
And what's the timeline we're looking at?
We have just started, we just got the budget, right? So now we have started defining the timeline. It would be a little bit premature for me to talk about the timeline, but we want to have concrete results within the next 12 months.
Okay, cool. Thanks very much. There's a question addressed to me. It seems to be a popular one. I'm just going to skip that for now because I want to give our panelists time to take the other question. I'll probably come back to that. So I'll go to the next one. What are the most urgent actions? Again, it's to the government and then maybe from private sector as well. What are the most urgent actions that governments and institutions should take to ensure digital AI-driven growth remains inclusive, right? Particularly, again, it's about upskilling, but of the vulnerable segments of the workforce. So how do we make this whole thing inclusive? Minister? Yeah.
See, there are two things I'll just like to add, and it will be in line with the question. So at the government, we have a government program, and then we know that execution The success will lies in execution or implementation. So we have a high-level steering committee for the implementation of the government program at the Prime Minister's office under the Prime Minister. And similarly, we have an implementation committee of the budget Innovative Mauritius under the Prime Minister at the Prime Minister's office. And I'm chairing both under the Prime Minister. Now, how do we ensure inclusion? So especially of the vulnerable groups. You know, if you look at if you look at, there's something called SRM in Mauritius, for instance, Social Register of Mauritius. So internet is free for the SRM,
Yes.
for instance, right? You know that, you're at Mauritius Telecom. So for the people who are vulnerable, most of the digital services, if they qualify in that bracket, will be free. And at the same time, I think these are only ideas. We need to empower more, let's say the Ministry of Social Security. It has a mandate today. But will they also digitally empower the vulnerable group? Now you have cyberbullying. So will they, you know, who will look after that? You have cybersecurity, you have so many things. So you have the Ministry of Social Security and you have the Ministry of, where Avinash is the minister. So these two ministries' mandate will be to ensure inclusion because that's a core value of our society and our government.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'll take one more question, and that will be for you, Nizam. This is about SMEs, right? So it's a very practical question. How can AI help businesses in recruitment industry, cleaning, or probably any others that you want to share to make them more competitive? How can AI help in those?
Okay, so at Zoho we are 20,000 people company. We hire a lot of people. We have our internal recruitment team. So this question could be relevant to our team as well, right? So I think we have a very wrong notion of AI is going to completely, going to shut down a recruitment team in an organization or a recruitment company. I think end of the day, the humans are going to really hire people. The AI tools are going to facilitate the whole hiring process. Recently we had an experiment in our recruitment team that all the resumes we used to parse using AI tools, and these days we get AI generated resumes, right? So we don't have no way to really find out whether it's a legitimate resume or really fake resume. So we did a small experiment of putting a fake citation inside our job description. So where people typically give the job description PDF to generate a resume. So we had a fake citation with a white font, right? So which means that the AI can read it, but human cannot read it. So that generated with that fake citation in the resume itself, and we got a resumes of 80-90% of resumes with that fake citation, which we rejected, right? So people are faking AI to really do it, and end of the day, I think the whole recruitment is not going to be completely replaced, but it's going to be augmented with the right set of tools. I think it's most important is to really remove the barrier of adopting those AI tools. And that's what government should really intend to do, and I'm glad that the government is trying to do here in Mauritius. So in terms of subsidizing, bring the top AI tools, subsidize it and give it to the people so that they can start the flavor of using it. Dubai government has done it. They've given the ChatGPT completely free for all the citizens in Dubai, right? So similar to that, we not give it for free, but at least subsidize and make it accessible for people to use it so that people from cleaning industry, from recruiting industry can try to use it and really augment it with their own way of doing things, become more productive, more savvy in AI, and be ready to really compete with the whole future forward with the AI. So that's the thing, what the government has to really enable in terms of embracing AI and keep the people in this vertical, vulnerable verticals, to be prepared for what's coming in the future.
Yeah, may I, Vimal, just on the SME startup, because it's important. See, SME in Mauritius, it's a way of life. It's just not a business, and it accounts for about 40% of our jobs. And I don't know how many of you have read it in the budget, but there are very specific capital allowances for investments by SMEs, startups on AI. So government is trying to stimulate investments in AI by SMEs and startups also.
Yep. So if you allow me to add something there, talking about AI in recruitment. In our legal framework, we have the Equal Opportunities Act. And any AI tool, and it's very important to note this, it uses data. We need the volume, variety, and velocity of data. So the test data that we use for the AI machine, it should be a test data that is well represented. And I often take this example. If we take three numbers, 5, 6, and 7, the average is 6. 5, 6, and 7. And suddenly, if we add another number to this data set, 30, the average then becomes 12. So what happens? The result shifted from 6 to 12 just because we added another data of a different nature. Just think if these numbers are applicants, and one applicant is of a different nature, the results get skewed. We may end up violating the Equal Opportunities Act when we apply that in recruitment. Therefore, and the EU AI Act has made recruitment become a high-risk application, and there is an authority that validates the integrity of the AI algorithms. And I think we do need to think in that direction, and this answer links up to the ethical use of AI, which came up.
Correct. And you've already kind of addressed that. In hindsight, by the way, thank you very much for your question. These are fantastic questions. In hindsight, I should have taken your questions earlier, I realize. I'll quickly address the very first one, because you kind of touched on that. What's our organization's biggest challenge at Mauritius Telecom in adoption of AI? And here I'm going to talk about like what I shared earlier with Mighty GPT. It was data, actually. Because it's really like garbage in, garbage out. And being able to build a system where you can get reliable answers means that you need to have like good sources of data. And it's easier said than done. By far, we spent more time on putting order within our data than the technology itself. And again, we can talk more about that. We're running out of time, unfortunately. Like, there have been just so much interesting things to talk about. Clive, I'm going to leave it to you to give us some parting words, and then we'll be done with the panel.
Thank you, Vimal. Yeah, a very interesting topic that we've been talking about, AI, innovation and inclusiveness. The way you address this is at all levels in the system. We need to address this at the national level, and government has a significant role to play there, and a proactive role. We can't just have government working on their own. Government needs to work with all of the different organizations that are in the nation, NGOs, special interest groups, people that are pressure groups providing feedback to the government, etc., and organizations. So partnership at that national level, absolutely critical. At the organization and ecosystem level, one more thing about government, it's not just about policy making and about setting frameworks in place. It's about truly working with the organizations, and not only the tech and the telco companies. And Jean-Pierre reminded me of that. When we started looking at AI, there's so many adjacencies, companies and organizations that are involved. Electricity to run data centers. So thinking about it in much more of a systemic way on how to address it is very important. Okay, at the ecosystem and at the organization level, to make sure that both of those are clean. And by that, I mean addressing it ethically. So you need to make sure that not only engaging people around the AI, around how to innovate and be inclusive in that, but also have the right measures in place to make sure that you address people's concerns around data privacy, about their own data, and honoring all of those things. And then at the individual level, we need to really think about what this means for different individuals in society and how we address those different individuals through the applications that we have available and creating those apps to do that.
Thank you. With these wise words, thank you very much, gentlemen. I think it's been a pleasure. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.